So as you can see, the scenario of this lab is basically we have a small business with a 3-tier web application, and we need the web and application server and the database server to be must be in a separate subnet, and the first address of the VPC will be 10.0.0. The customer must always be able to access your web server. The application server must accept traffic only from the web server, and this is what I'm going to show as well in this video, and how you can make the server of the DB only accept traffic from the application server. The architecture should be highly available and highly scalable. You should basically adhere to the 5 pillars of well-architected framework. So the first thing I need to do is to create a VPC called Project VPC. And that Project VPC will be used mainly to host the multi-AZ deployment. And this is the script that I'm going to use in the web tier and in the app tier as well. It's going to be the same script where we just test the connectivity to our RDS here. So let me start by going to the VPC. And I will go to the VPC dashboard. I launch the VPC wizard. I will select VPC with public and private subnet. Let me call this project VPC. Now this is going to be my public subnet 1 in the first availability zone. My private subnet 1 as well, it will be in the first availability zone. Now let us check the IPs. The public subnet is 10.0.1. And the private subnet, which is going to be, in my case, web private subnet 1, is going to be 10.0.4. And as you can see, I don't have an elastic IP. So what I will do, before I exit this wizard, I could go to the VPC from a different tab. I go to the elastic IPs, and I allocate a new elastic IP. Now I should be able to see that elastic IP once I create it here. And now I will create the VPC. Now this will create a NAT gateway here in the first public subnet. Now I will try to create also, when I finish the whole VPC, I will create a NAT gateway for public subnet 2 and a NAT gateway for public subnet 3, just in case if those two availability zones are down, I still have a NAT gateway to forward the traffic to the private instances. Now I will wait for this wizard to finish. While this is finishing, I want you to note a few things here. I want you to notice that the web security group for the app tier and the app security group for the application tier and the DB security group. So what I'm going to do as well to create these beforehand, then I will create a separate security group for the web ELB and another security group for the app ELB as well. Then I will chain those security groups in a scenario where I will only prevent the web security group to accept traffic from the web ALB, and the web ALB will be the only security group that I will open to any IP or to the public. Then the app ALB will accept only requests from the web security group. The app security group will only accept traffic from the app ELB, which to add an extra layer of security. Then the DB security group will accept traffic only from the app security group. I hope it's clear what we are going to do. If this is not clear, we are going to show you exactly how we are going to do this. So while this is finishing, so let me go here to the security group. And I think we need to wait first for the VPC. So the VPC is ready. So we need to have the VPC ready first. So my subnets are ready. And you can see now I have a project VPC. So let me carry on. And you decide how to work, whether you work horizontally, left to right, or vertically. It's up to you. So I'm going to go with horizontally. So I will create each layer at a time. So select the project VPC. I will call this public subnet 2, and this is going to be the second availability zone. The IP address, as we can see from the diagram, is going to be 10.0.2.0 with a /24. Then I will create the public subnet 3, and this is going to be in the third availability zone in US East 1C, and this is going to be 10.0.3.0/24 and create. By this, I create the public tier, or the 3 subnets that I have in the front. I carry on now and I create another subnets, which is the web tier. I already have web private subnet 1, so now I go to create web private subnet 2, and this is going to be in 1B. The IP address for this is 10.0.5.0/24. Then I want to create the web private subnet 3, and this is going to be in 1C, and the IP address is going to be 10.0.6.0 with a /24, and then create. I move on now and I create the app tier. So I'm going to select the project VPC again, and I will put now the app private subnet 1, and this is in 1A. Now remember, I have this, but this EC2, the web private subnet 1 and the public subnet 1, they were created by the wizard, so I don't need to recreate them. But in this case, I need to create the 3 subnets, and this is going to take the IP 10.0.7.0 with the /24. Then let us add also app private subnet 2, and this is going to be in US East 1B, and this is going to be 10.0.8.0 with the /24. And now let me add the third one, which is going to be app private subnet, which is app private subnet 3, and this is going to be in 1C, and this is going to be 10.0.9.0 with a /24. So these are the 3 subnets that we will be used mainly by the app tier. Now let us create the last one, which is going to be the DB tier, which is private. Let me call this DB. I will call this DB private subnet 1, and this is in 1A, and it will take the IP 10.0.10.0 with a /24. Remember, guys, the subnet name is a tag, is not something we deal with in the technicals. When we deal with those subnets, we deal with the subnet ID instead. So you could call them anything you want. So DB private subnet, and this is going to be 2, second availability zone, and it will have the IP 10.0.11.0 with a /24, and these are going to be create subnet. So by this, we have now, if I expand my screen here and I look to the project VPC, I could see that this project VPC contains now public subnet 3, public subnet 1, public subnet 2. So that's the first check. Then we have web private subnet 2, web private subnet 1, and web private subnet 3. Then they have app private subnet 1, app private subnet 3, and app private subnet 2. Then I don't see the DB private subnet 2 and the DB private subnet 3. So I'm going to create those now. seems to be I forget them. So DB a private subnet 2, and this is in the second availability zone. Now I could go to my diagram quickly and see the IP address. It's going to be 10.11.0/24, and then add the DB private subnet 3, and this is going to be in the third availability zone, and the IP address for this guy is 10.0.12 with a /24, and then create a subnet. Let me call this 12, and I will call this guy 13. I think there is maybe a delay between what I have created and what I can see. Let me refresh the page. So I have DB private subnet 1 and 2. So 1, 2, and the 3 is there. So there is one subnet which I don't need, which is this subnet here. DB private subnet 1, 10, subnet 2, 11, subnet 2, 12, and 13. So I'm going to delete one subnet. So I'm going to delete private subnet 3, sorry. And this will be delete. And now there is one subnet I need to change the name of it, which is DB private subnet 1, DB private subnet 2, and this guy is going to be DB private subnet 3. As I said to you guys, this is only mainly a tag that we use. Now, if you go back to the diagram, I want a NAT gateway to be associated and to be highly scalable. So I'm going to create 2 more NAT gateways and link them with public subnet 2 and public subnet 3. So I'm going to go now to the system, NAT gateway. I create, you can call this second NAT. And this will be associated with public subnet 2, and it will take an elastic IP address and then create a NAT gateway. I'm going to go and create a third NAT gateway as well, and this will be for my subnet in the third availability zone, third NAT, and this is going to be in the public subnet 3. It needs an elastic IP, of course. It's a public one, and then create. Now in my route table here, you could see I have, for my public subnet, I have project VPC with main equal no. This means this is my public subnet. And then I have a private subnet route table for all my private subnet, which is basically linking my private subnet to the VPC. So I'm going to call this private route table. Okay, but I will call this zone A because I need to create now 2 more route tables, as I will see you now. So in the public subnet, in the route, we have 2 destinations, 000/0 is going to the internet gateway. This is all good, no problem on that. Now my private route table, if you check here, the route is going to take you in the first availability zone to all these NAT here. So I'm going to select now with this route table these subnets that I can see on the first availability zone. So I'm going to associate with it with private subnet 1 and app private subnet 1 and then DB private subnet 1 and save. Now how we can deal with the others, I'm going to create a new route table and I will call this private route table zone B, and this is going to be in my project VPC. Create a route table. Now this route table, I need to edit the routes. I add for all IPs to go to my NAT gateway or my second NAT gateway, which the one will operate in the second zone. So this is my NAT gateway. I will select the second NAT, save changes. And with this sub route table, I'm going to link web private subnet 2 and app private subnet 2 and also DB private subnet 2 and save. Then for the last zone in my route table, I'm going to create another route table and I will call this private route table zone C. And this is going to be with my project VPC. If you notice here, the destination again need to be associated with a NAT gateway. So all IPs going to be in my NAT gateway in my third NAT and save. The subnet association, I will edit this and I will link this guy to my web private subnet 3, app private subnet 3, and DB private subnet 3 and save association. Now by this, I could carry on now and I finish the structure of my project VPC. Now let me now do the security group. So if you look to the diagram here, I will create now the web security group, then the web ALB security group, then the app ALB security group, and the app security group, and then the DB security group. So let me start from the top to bottom. So I'm going to create a security group. I will call this web ALB SG, allow access to the web load balancer. Now, in which VPC I want it? In the project VPC, and I want it to accept HTTP traffic from anywhere and create a security group. Now, the next thing, I'm going to create the web security group, allow access to HTTP from the web ALB. I want only the web ALB to be able to access my web security group. So add now custom HTTP, and in the custom now, I select the security group of the web ALB. So only the web ALB will be able to send the traffic to the web tier. Create security group. It is port 80. Now let us create the app load balancer security group, app ALB security group. Allow now access to the app ALB from the web tier. We call this, guys, or we call this procedure security group chaining. And now I will add HTTP custom. Now the security group is going to be the one which I create, which is the web security group, not the web ALB. And then create a security group. Now let us create the app security group. In the app security group, allow access to HTTP from the app ALB only. And this is going to be in my VPC here, the project VPC, add rule, HTTP, and that HTTP is going to be custom from the app ALB security group, and then create a security group. The last thing I want is to create basically the DB security group, allow access to MySQL from the app tier only. So the source of the traffic will be the app tier only. select the project VPC. Now this is going to be MySQL Aurora. MySQL Aurora. And the custom here is going to be the app security group, not the app ALB security group. And create a security group. So all my security group are okay. Now let me go to the EC2, and from the EC2 I will launch two configuration servers. One configuration server will be used for my web, and the second configuration server will be used for my app. So it's going to be in my project VPC, in my first public subnet, and with enable IP. And here in the user data, I will go and copy the script, which is the script that we have here, guys. The script which is copy and paste, then add storage, add tag. I will call this, guys, conf server or web server. So you distinguish this between this guy and the other guy, web server. Now, what kind of security I need to give for this one? Mainly, I want it to be inside my web security group. But later on, let me configure it now with the web ALB security group so I can test it, because this is allow me to visit this security group. I tell you what, let us create a new security group. I will call this test or config security group. Just I will add an HTTP. Later on, I'm not going to use this security group at all. I just want to test that I can access this configuration server. I could do SSH to it just for the sake of the tutorial. So I will create this server now, and then I will go and launch another instance. And this time I'm going to call it the conf app security group. Again, it will be in the project VPC, in my public subnet 1, enable IP, and in the user data, I will put this script here, add storage, add tag, and I will call this name. This is going to be app conf server, and then configure security group. I could use the same configuration security group I just create, which is configure security group, to test that the app server is running perfectly and all good. Launch an instance. Now, before we carry on, I want to do few tests for both servers. So that's the app configuration, and this is the web config. Web config. Sometimes those tags are not taken by the console, so we can edit those tags easily. Now let us test that we can see the main demo application of the app in the first web configuration, which is correct. We can see it here. And now from the app configuration server, I want to test as well. I can access the same application. Still, maybe it's not ready yet. Let me close this now, and let me see the app config, copy IP, security group. Which security group we use? It's the app, the web configuration security group. So port 80 is open. Now sometimes the script take time to launch. Okay, we have both the web and the app, both they give us a result. So now we need to create an AMI. So we will select the web configuration, and from action, image and template, create an image, and we will call this the web image. Now this will be used by the autoscaler, guys, to launch an EC2 with this software pre-installed in it. Create an image, then select the app config server, go to action, image and template, create an image, and this will be the app AMI, and then create an image. Now we keep those in creation now, and let us proceed to the RDS. So let me go to the RDS now in a new tab, and I will create an RDS, because both they will take time. for RDS to be ready and for the AMI to be ready before I can proceed to create a load balancer and autoscaler. So let us create a database. It's going to be MySQL and dev and test, free tier. You can choose as well. It doesn't really matter. Now let me call this a project. The admin and the password, the same one we always use, lab-password. Confirm it is the correct password, lab-password. And then we need to select T2 micro, that will do. We don't need enable storage. And now in my project VPC, I want to create a new DB subnet group. I prefer to keep this no public. Now choose an existing key pair or choose an existing security group. We are going to select, if you recall, the DB security group. And there is no preferences in the additional configuration. We just check the port number is the same one. Now the initial database name is lab. And basically enable automated backup. We don't need that. Auto miners, we don't need that. And then create a DB. Let me remove that. Now create a DB. So the lab is the RDS now in a creation. If you notice now, we can check the AMI, if those AMI are ready. Still, both they are in a creation. So what we could do now is to proceed and create a load balancer. In this case, if you look back to my diagram, guys, there is two types of load balancer. There is the web ALB and the app ALB. Now, for the sake of the tutorial, I'm going to make both of them are internet facing. So both of them, they will operate at the public subnet. Now, in real life scenario, the web ALB will be public and the app ALB will be basically internal, and you won't access it directly from the public subnet. So we could do that just to create basically a testing bed for our experiment. We will create both in the public subnet. I tell you what, let us create only the web ALB in public subnet. So create load balancer, create an application. That's going to be the web ALB. It is an internet facing. I will operate this in a project VPC. Now look how many availability zone I have. I have public subnet 1 in the first availability zone. In the second availability zone, I want public subnet 2. And also, I want the public subnet 3 in the third availability zone. And we need to select the security group, which is the web ALB security group. Now here we don't have a group yet, so we could go and create a group. We will call this instance. It's in the project VPC, and the group name will be web group. Click next. I think we are not allowed to use spaces. Click next. Now we don't have any machine to register, so we just create the group. Go back to the load balancer and now refresh the page and select the web group. There is many options you can use here, but we just want to create it with the default. So we create it only with the default. Now we go and create the app ALB. App ALB. Now let me call this internal. So this means the app ALB will operate here at this web private subnet to receive traffic from the web autoscaler. So the app ALB, let us test it in the public subnet first, and then we can move if we need. This is going to be in the first public subnet. And here we need to have public subnet 2. And the third availability zone, we need subnet 3. Now security group is going to take the app load balancer security group. Now we don't have a target, so we need to create a target, and we call this app group. next, and then create the group. Go back to the load balancer and refresh the page. That's my app group here, and create a load balancer. So now we have two load balancers. We have one called app ALB, and the second one is web ALB. Now let us go and check whether our EC2 instances, the AMI that I just create, are ready for me to be used. So both they are available. So this is the web AMI and this is the app AMI. I could now go and create a launch configuration. So I will create the first launch configuration. I will call this web config, or you can call it web-lc launch configuration. Now it will take the web AMI. The instance type is going to be T2 micro. Select T2 micro, and there is something wrong. Refresh. Web config. Let us load the AMI again. Web AMI, choose an instance. Now T2 micro. Seems to be now they are using T3 micro with most labs. We don't have any specific configuration, just only we need to make sure to select and to give that launch configuration the web security group. You could also create an existing key pair, or which will use the default one, Vocarium key, and create launch configuration. Now go again and create, I tell you what, let us create, after the web configuration, let us from action create an auto scaling group. So this is the web auto scale. Next, now this is going to be operating the project VPC in which subnet? Now go back to the diagram. The web autoscaler will operate in the web private subnet 1, subnet 2, and subnet 3. So let us select those. Web private subnet 1, web private subnet 2, and web private subnet 3. Click next. We have a load balancer to deal with, so we are going to attach it to the web group. ALB, you can just put the health check to 90 seconds. This is give you more faster result. Now the desired capacity 2, the minimum 2, and the maximum are going to be 6. Target scaling group, CPU utilization in 60. Now the warm-up of the machine, I will put it 100 seconds. I just try to create something that can be fast enough to respond to the CPU. Name, I will call this web auto scale, which means this machine will be created by the web auto scaler and create an auto scaling group. You could go back now to the launch configuration, and from my launch configuration, I'll create a new app launch configuration. This will take the app AMI. The instance type is going to be T2 micro as well. T2 micro, and choose. Now, the last thing I want to do is to select an existing security group. And as you know, I have the app security group there. Let us select the Vocarium key and create a launch configuration. Now that app will be used with the autoscaler. So let us create an app autoscaler. Now, if you notice here, the app autoscaler will operate in app private subnet 1, 2, and 3. So I'm going to go next. This is in the project VPC, and it will operate in app private 1 and app private 2. And finally, app private 3. Click next. Attach to an existing load balancer, which is the app group. The health check ALB 100. And then next, desired capacity going to be 2, and here we have 2, and here we have 6 of these, with target scaling policy 60 60, and now the grace period or the warm period is 100, and then click next. Click next here, add tag. Now let us call this name app auto scaler, and then create the auto scaling group. So now you can see the web auto scaling is start to update the capacity. It already created 2 EC2. So if you go to instances, you will find that now the web auto scaler create 1 and 2 machines. Those are operating in the private subnet, web private subnet 2. Now the app also create an app autoscaler, so you could go and select the web config and the app config servers because we don't need them, guys, and stop them. Now this will take time to make the architecture steady and reach a convergence. You could select the web ALB and test that you can have access to the content of this web page. If this takes so much time, you need to go to check the target group. And in the target group, you can see there is 2 healthy instances which accepted traffic from the load balancer. For our app target group, still there is no registered instances because if you look here to the EC2, the instances is still in the warming up phase. You could also go and register those targets yourself if you want to register app autoscaler and app autoscaler. If you want to basically register them, you can register them as well using this action. So you can see now the web ALB is giving me some traffic from the instances. You could also load a test and you leave the test working just to make sure that the project is responding. So in this video, we create a multi-tier architecture. We create this architecture in this diagram where we have 2 load balancer operating, and we have as well a multi-tier architecture supporting the autoscaler of the web and the app. Thank you for seeing this video, and see you in the next one.